Good morning. So, it is the last day and we are supposed to, complete all the questions, the tests, and, the test number 2 was assigned to you yesterday. And, but before that, a couple of questions from this assumption sheet were left. I gave you the answers yesterday, so let me just go through these passages. And after that we will discuss the test. Very good morning. Now, so could you just mention the number of the passage? Like passage number 8 was not discussed. Passage number 8 was assigned to you. I gave you the answer. In case of any doubts, you can ask me, right? The answer is with you, and in case of any doubts, you can mention the number of the passage in this assumption sheet. From the non-CSAT section, we completed all the questions. From the CSAT section questions, I think majority of the questions we completed here, and a few questions were left, and I gave you the answer. And so meanwhile you are writing your doubts, I need to tell you about today's agenda. We are going to discuss the test number 2. Test number 2 is based on CIA. I have told you that in CSAT, mostly they ask the questions based on conclusion, inference, and assumptions. So, more and more practice on these 3 questions is required. That's why we have done the worksheets, the practice sheet, and then the test number 2. And then in today's class, I will also discuss with you, after the test discussion, number 2, we will discuss some other type of logical questions. Not asked in CSAT. Till date. However, there is a chance that, if they ask these questions, because, as you see that UPSC's scanner is gradually moving towards the logical, critical reasoning based questions. Though they have asked the regular questions, yet there are a few more questions that you need to know the basics of those questions. So in today's class, I will discuss the nitty-gritty of those questions as well. In case you come across any question in 2023 paper, so you should not be, at the scratch level, and you must know the basics. So we will discuss such questions. We have discussed here in the classroom the question that UPSC asks is corollary and implication, and conclusion is assumption and inference. These 5 questions we have done. Then we are supposed to do in today's class such question that UPSC has rarely asked or almost never asked, like number 1, argument based questions. Number 2, there is a question based on parallel reasoning. Number 3, the question where they give you a paradox or an anomalous situation, and they ask you to find out the valid explanation for that. So paradox or anomaly based questions. So these are the 3 type of questions we will discuss in today's class, right? Plus I will brief you on how to approach the long passages, multi-para passages. Though multi-para passages last time was asked in the year 2018. So right, Sahib and Biswajit, I have got your doubts. We'll address that. But before that, let me, the third agenda, after the second, the third agenda is, how to approach Because if a multi-para passage is given, then there will be a different approach. You need to take care of the time, more content is there. So how to approach a multi-para based passage? As you know that the question asked in the multi-para or in a single para will all be same. Either they will ask you crux based question or a logical questions. The only thing you need to take care of in a multi-para is that how to go for speed reading, and then the other important crucial points that you need to take care of. So how to approach multi-para passages, I will start with that so that others can also join in between. You see, the very first thing, there are certain precautions that one should take. This is your CSAT paper, and A4 sheet in 2 columns the passages are written. So at times it happens that the passage starts here let's say this passage starts here, right? Maybe in the second column, after the half of this it starts, and you have started reading it because you have just come across this passage. So many students have this habit that what they come across, they just get entangled with that without taking care of other stuff, which may be very, very dangerous, I can say, in an exam hall. Why is it so? You will come to know about this. And after this, you have read this part. When you turn over the page, you go to the second page, and there you see that this passage is going on and on. There are 4 more paragraphs written there. What happens in the exam hall? The students get panicked because earlier the first para he read without bothering to find out how much time is left and what is the length of the passage. In the exam hall, suppose this situation has arrived and you have only 35 minutes left. So of course, in 35 minutes, you feel that I should not invest my time in this long passage, rather I should go for smaller passages because they will take less time. But since you have invested your time, you have already started reading as per your habit and did not bother to cross-check the length, so it may create a kind of dilemma and you think that, okay, I have invested time, so let me continue. Or should I stop here or not? So there are certain, these kind of things are there. So the number one thing I would suggest you is that always be careful of what is, I mean in terms of the step I am telling you. So look at this triangle. It is your cone of attention. So a kind of drill down exercise. So the very first step you need to take care of is that always look at the length of the passage before you start reading the passage. To look at the length, okay? Length will give you the clear idea that at that juncture should you go for that or not. So length of the passage is number one thing. Number two, you must also look at the the number of the questions, because if 4 paragraphs you are going to read and there are only 2 questions based on that, so you are only fighting for 5 marks. However, you have invested more time. So who knows that you could have solved maybe 3 or 4 more paragraphs, single para based questions. 4 questions you could have solved in the in the same amount of time. So the returns must always be weighed, must always be cross-checked. So number of the questions also becomes very important. So always look at that. So I would suggest that in case you find 4, 3, 5 paragraph based passage, however, the number of the question is just 2 or 3, then better you go for smaller paragraphs because it takes less time. Psychologically, you are in a driving seat, passage is small, so I can read it twice. But here you can't afford to read it twice. Alright, so if you find yes, there are 4 questions, so for 10 marks I can do that, because it's not only the negative thing related to a multi-para passage, there's a positive thing as well. And the positive thing is that once you have read the passage and you are aware of the story, you are aware of the details of the passage, so you are in a position to go through all the questions that are given there. However, in a single para and 1 question set, you have to every time, for every second question, you have to go through a new story, a new argument, a new subject topic, right? So that's a positive thing as well. So that's why I am going into the details that you should not be just you should not just blindly make up your mind that I should go for it or I shouldn't. So dear, length is the first factor you will go for, right? So that you don't lose time. And many students have suffered because they just came across a passage, they started reading it, when they turn over the page, they found the passage was too long and it has, it was a time wastage. Number two factor, number of questions you will look at in case UPSC asks. And number three factor is that you should look at the level of the passage. Level of the passage is again very important. So how to identify the level and what do I mean by level? By level I mean, if I roughly I can say that if the whether the passage is easy or average or difficult, complex. So easy or average or complex, these three factors are decided on the basis of the subject topic on which the passage is written, on the basis of the number two, language, and also on the basis of the style of the author. So these three factors are there. Now, in case you are not from a philosophical background, however, you have come across a passage that is based on philosophy, based on an abstract topic. The passage is based on some topic and you are not much aware of, so contextual understanding is not as good as it should be. So, rather you should, first go for this basic test that whether I should go for this passage or not. And the level of the passage does not mean that you, after reading the entire passage, you will get to know the level. You only read the first sentence, opening sentence, read the very last sentence, the closing sentence, and chances are that you will get to know about the level, about the subject topic, whether you have the contextual understanding or not. In case it is nothing dawns at, on you and you are still clueless. So you can take second step, that just read the opening line, opening sentence of each paragraph. Suppose there are 4 paragraphs, then go to each paragraph, just read the first line and the very last sentence of the passage. So I'm sure that, by doing this second exercise, you will be able to crack and will be able to understand that what is the level of the passage. So these three factors are very important. Once you are okay with all this, only then you should take up the questions. So second step, I am going for this passage, will be decided, or I am not going for this passage, will be decided on the basis of these 3 points. Right? Rest, the questions you already know. They will either ask the inference, or they may also ask factual questions. They may ask what is the key message of this passage. So these are the things. One thing you should take care of, that speed does matter here. So please use a pen when you are reading, right? Move it along, but don't underline or encircle everything. I have come across a couple of students who say, sir, mera time bahut lagta hai passage pe. I said, okay, show me the paper. And when this student brought me the paper, almost every second word was encircled. So I said, when you are reading like this, how much time you spent, encircling or underlining almost everything, then it is back to square. So your pen, this tip of the pen is in fact your sensor. You should move it along when you read it. And as I told you, that rather focus on the structure part of the passage, the functional part of the sentences, instead of being more concerned about the words and the meaning that you do not know, or reading and regression, rereading, that you should not do. So just keep reading. I agree that there could be some parts where you won't be able to understand. So maybe you just put a bracket beside it, right? Because twice or thrice or 4 times reading may not fetch you anything. So just go ahead, right? In case there is any question related to this part, only then this part becomes important for you. What if there is no question related to this part that you could not understand? So you just don't waste your time by reading and rereading it, right? So your job is, your objective is to find the answer. You are selected for that. Understanding of the passage is an ideal thing, and of course that should happen, but at times in aptitude test it happens that you are able to solve to find the answer. However, the comprehension of the passage was not 100%. That is very much possible. So you must be, when you read, just use pen and try to identify structure, underline and encircle selected words where you feel that yes, any proper noun if you come across, I would say that underline that. Any figure, any number, or if the author used like superlative degree with something, or any such words that he used to emphasize on something, to exaggerate something, like he says above all, or he say moreover, or he say but the most serious issue is, so that part only. So selected ones. These underlining or encircling to selected parts in the paragraphs helps you in another way. The other way is that if there is any question related to that part, at least these underlined part are like a signage. They are very visible. So you can go back to the relevant part and find out the answer. All right. So dear, in multi-para passages, last time the UPSC asked in the year 2018, CSAT 2018 had two multi-para passages. Since then, they have not given you any multi-para passage. However, in the year 2022, they changed the pattern in one way, that is, earlier they were giving almost all passages based, one question was asked almost based on each para or each passage. This year, I mean 2022, they gave one para, however 2 or 3 questions were based on that. Though the para was slightly bigger, you can say that it was 100 plus words, however 3 questions or 2 questions were given. So that was in a way, helping the students, not consuming much time, and he was still able to score 7.5 marks or 5 marks. This year, I think that they may give you multi-para passages because they have introduced one change previous year. So this year, they may be multi-para passages. However, there will not be many. So they will give you, I think, the maximum, if they give you multi-para passages, it will be hardly 2 or maybe 3. Right? So the point is clear. Timing, length, number of question, level of the passage, only then you proceed for it. Right? And while reading, some of the basic that you need to care of. So folks, in the sheet, in the material that has been shared with you, I have given you some practice, for your practice, some multi-para passages are given there. I will share the answers of those passages. However, after having solved the logical questions which are more tricky and complex, I don't think that you will face problem in multi-para passages. Right? So 1 or 2 will solve in the classroom, and then now I take up your doubts. Assumption passage number 10. So Biswajit, your doubt in passage number 10 of the CSAT part. Here it is. This is a very interesting passage asked in the year 2020, and 3 assumptions, all 3 gets validity from the para. They align, they reverberate with the author's thought. For example, look at the first one, Biswajit. It says high risk involved in holding maximum water in reservoirs are due to our over-dependence on hydropower projects. And this comes from the last sentence. Author says, but the authorities stored the maximum amount of water in reservoirs even before the close of the monsoon, only to ensure greater electricity generation. So it means we are only to ensure they take this risk of not filling the reservoirs up to their maximum level, up to the brim. Though the monsoon season is still on, I mean it is not over, yet they take this. So first one is valid. Second one, storage capacity of dam should not be fully used before or during monsoon. Yes, we get it, because after telling the practice in India, author tells you the international practice and he justifies the international practice. So from these 2 parts you get that the second is also correct. Right? In India, authorities always look to store the maximum amount of water in reservoirs during the monsoon. So during the monsoon means the monsoon season is not over. So if more rains come, you don't have space to store more water, right? So this second is, then author says it is an internationally accepted practice that the water level of reservoir should be kept below a certain level before the onset of monsoon season. This is so. Then he justifies that, so that when monsoon rains come, there is a space to store the excess rainwater, and also so that water can be released in a regulated manner. So can be stored. However, in India, since it is not practiced, so we can understand that if more water comes, what will happen? So the author tries to convey to us, alluding to us this point, that is storage capacity of dam should not be fully used. Yes, because he has justified that. Point number 3, role of dams in flood controls is underestimated in India. Yes, we can say that it is underestimated because the way the argument has been, mentions In the argument, the author mentions that internationally accepted practice is this, and justification he has done for that. He says, but in India, we always look to store maximum amount of water. And why we do this? We do this only to ensure greater electricity generation. It means our focus is more on electricity generation rather than taking care of floods also. The role of the dams in India is underestimated in, right? So all three are correct assumptions. In assumption, you have to only cross-check whether the idea mentioned in the statements are getting validated, are being supported in accordance with the para or not. Okay, so folks, now next passage. AI sheet and Acha Subrata, you have problem with the passage number 9. Passage number 9 CSAT passage. After this, I will go to A&I based sheet. So, dear passage number 9. Yes, this was again a challenging question asked in 2019, I think. This passage, the above passage implies that. Implies means the author, yes, implies that, then say what is the valid assumption. Now, there is a potential problem of food insecurity in India. You see, potential problem of food insecurity in India, the word is potential. It means may not be now, but it is a part of estimation, maybe in future. So, since author tells you that the rural smallholding farmers in India, including India, they have contributed little to human-induced climate change, yet they are facing threats. So, what are the threats? Threats are mentioned here that they are facing. Right, average rainfall is low, and the more frequent and extreme weather condition they are facing, such as droughts and floods, can spell disaster. Right? So, and then there are new threats. So, author also mentioned the new threats such as sea level rise and the impact of melting glaciers. So, when these farmers are facing these problems, and then author mentioned that how significant are small farms. He says, as many as 2 billion people worldwide depend on them for their food and livelihood, and smallholder farmers in India produce 41% of the country's food grains and other food items that contribute to local and national food security. 41% is a reasonable number, is a big number. So, of course, we can say since these farmers are, at the very edge and they are facing these threats, and 41% they contribute. So, there is a potential problem of food insecurity in India cannot be overlooked. If this word potential is not given in the statement, suppose the statement says there is a problem of food insecurity in India, that would be wrong because that will be talking about the present time. However, potential means that there is estimation in the future there could be. So, yes, the kind of threats they are facing and the contribution of food, they are at the edge. So, first is valid. Second also valid because the author himself has said that droughts and floods they face that can spell disaster. Then there are new threats in India, sea level rise and melting of glacier. So, these may cause some calamities, and hence India will have to strengthen its disaster management capabilities. Yes, because India is facing, these new threats and these environmental. So, there are chances that the calamities, could occur. So, both statements are valid assumptions because they get the support in the passage in terms of the data, in terms of the idea, both. So, you have to cross check whether in terms of the idea of the author, and then second thing in terms of the data, it is given or not. So, that is passage 9. Chaliye sahab, next. Okay. That's number 9 of test 2 will discuss. Practice sheet AI number 6. Sahib, your doubt. ये तो साहब आपने पहले ही अपने नाम में लगा लिया कि अपनी IAS बनने से पहले ही लोग आपको साहब ही साहब कहेंगे. तो it is Sahib. And so this one is practice sheet AI based, passage number 6. Passage number 6 I have already discussed. This one is an inference question and I have discussed this one. Devolution. Yesterday I discussed. You just go through that video and you will find it there. Passage 6 is just inference. Are you asking about the question? Acha, question number 6. I'm sorry. Question number 6. I connected with the passage. All right. So this passage is passage number 5. Individual groups and leaders who promote human development operate under a strong institutional structure and political constraint that affect policy options, but experience suggests broad principles of shaping and important finding in the several records of human development experiences that focusing exclusively on economic growth is problematic. Focusing, the one problem we have seen that exclusively on economic growth is problematic. While we have good knowledge about how to advance health and education, the cases of growth are much less certain. And growth is often elusive, right? So the growth is often, if further an unbalanced emphasis on growth and economic growth is often associated with negative environmental consequences and adverse distributional effects. Now author gives you the example, the experience of China with its impressive growth record. The economic growth has been very impressive, reflects these broader concerns and underlines the importance of balanced approaches that emphasize investments in the non-income aspects of human development. So basically human economic growth is not just the only thing, it may also cause problematic unless it takes care of the human development factor, it is not very meaningful. And the example of the China is given here. So question number 6 I have is easier it was. Dear assumption, idea of the author you have understood. It says higher economic growth is essential to ensure reduction in economic disparity. Now this is not coming from the passage. As a GS student you may say so, you may think so. However, the passage does not give you the sufficient data. Essential means that without it, it cannot happen. So it means that reduction in economic disparity cannot happen without higher economic growth. Who knows? Is it given in the passage? The first is wrong. Second, environmental degradation is said sometimes a consequence of economic growth. Yes, sometimes is written, not always. Agar always hota to wrong, so B should have been chosen, and the passage gives you the base for this assumption. You see this point. Further, an unbalanced emphasis on growth is often associated with negative environmental consequences. That has happened in China. So author, does an advocacy for balanced growth, balanced approach, right? So this is done. Is that clear to you? So I have discussed passage number 9. I have discussed this question. Passage 10 discussed. Now I should take you to as many as, whenever you are going to tell the number, see as many as is also used for comparison. Doubt passage 13, 1 of test 2 CIE based. Okay, so should we go to test 2? And in this sheet, this CR based questions and AI based sheet, all your doubts have been addressed, right? You have gained the confidence on the assumption questions. You have understood in this worksheet that assumption we have to find out that the beginning passages were based on the missing part. It was like a gap filler assumption. However, multi-statement passages gave you the idea. But the gap filler is quite easy because you just find out C, conclusion, main point, and how author has arrived from the given premises, and you find the correct option which bridges the gap between P and C. In the multi-statements, the statement could be related, as we saw in the CSAT passages, that statements could get the veracity from any part of the passage. And we have to cross-check whether it is consistent in terms of the idea of the author, logically as the author is thinking, is it in the line? Second thing we cross-check whether the data is sufficient or not. So having said that, I will now move to test number 2. Test number 2 on your screen, CIA based. Let me tell you that even if you get 60% in this test, it is good because the passages are really difficult, especially of these assumption questions and inference questions. So इसमें आपका I will share with you the answer and explanation of this separately, so the students who missed it out, maybe not attending today's class, they can go through the detail. As of now, the doubt you have mentioned is passage number 9 and then passage number 13. So here I give you the answer for this passage number 1. It should be option A. So quickly you cross check your answers for passage number 1. It should be option A. Or let me do one thing is I'm going to discuss the same type of questions. So because CIA there are 3 questions. So I take the conclusion question first, and then you can cross check your accuracy in the conclusion, then we'll go to inference and assumption. So passage 1 is assumption, let's skip it. Passage 2 is based on conclusion because it is asking about what the author of the passage holds the view that, yani what is his main point. Of course his view will contain the conclusion. So it is related to C. And the correct answer is B option. Leadership can be acquired as well as taught. From the paragraph we get that. Right? You see the second sentence. Some people believe that leadership is a quality which you have at birth or not at all. But author says this theory is false. And he gives the reason. For the art of leadership can be acquired and can indeed be taught. So we have the option B. Other options are wrong. They don't have no data. Everybody should have got passage number 2, question number 2 correct. The answer is B option. Anyone who has missed it has missed a kind of sitter or howler it is. बहुत simple सी error हो गई अगर आपने किया इसमें. Passage number 3 is assumption. Passage number 4. Passage number 4 asks you about the crucial message. I have told you apply all these crux-based conclusion type of questions. You can apply the tricks. It is either you go for orange and juice analysis, the main point should be there. Secondly, you can go for the reverse approach in case you are confused between 2 options. So ये passage 4 देखिए. In this crucial message, the correct answer should be option D for Delhi, because the author has given you the data supporting this point. Last, he says 15,000 liters of water is needed for every kg of meat, right? Other options lose out. Why A is wrong? Because it says mass production of meat through industrial farming is cheap and is suitable for providing protein nutrition to poor countries. You know, this part, suitable for providing protein, is not coming from the passage. And since it's an orange and juice kind of thing, message should be there of the author in the passage. So it is not coming from orange, it is coming from outside, right? So A part is wrong. Option B, meat producing industry violates the laws against cruelty to animals. Now, violates the laws are not mentioned. Author has mentioned that they are not kept in good conditions, very, very pathetic condition. The animals are kept, the birds are kept. However, they violate the law is not given. So, according to message, B also loses out. Option C says mass production of meat through industrial farming is undesirable. That's correct, undesirable, and should be stopped immediately. Now, there are 2 options. If a wrong practice is going on, either you can correct it, number 1, or you can stop it if you cannot correct it. So, you can brought it. So, what it talks about, the passage talks about the mass production of meat through farms, industrial farms, where a large number of animals are killed and massacred, and then the meat is supplied. So that mass production of meat through industrial farming is undesirable and should be, the whole industry, this practice should be stopped immediately. So why this cannot be tweaked? That's why author has not given this. But from the given data that it is environmental cost is humongous, that is D is the right option. Again, I believe everybody must have got it correct, 4th D. Let's go to next passage of conclusion. This is assumption. Yes. I'll go to this passage number 7. It has 2 questions, and its second question is critical message of the passage. So question number 8 of passage number 7, critical message. So message should be there, and the correct option should be option D. Inclusive agriculture growth is key to reduce poverty in the near future. Inclusive agricultural growth. And author has only spoken in the passage mainly about this poverty alleviation. that is smallholding farmers in India and what happens, right? Like in China and Vietnam, they've experienced structural and rural transformation. As a result, poverty reduction in India was at a much slower pace during this period compared to China in this. The poverty reduction it is being discussing here. And of course, it means that financial inclusion is required there because when the lower strata is taken into the fold. So this passage 7, question number 8, 7 question I'm not discussing, that is assumption. So question number 8, it should have been option D for Delhi. Now moving to next one, passage number 10. Passage number 10 is very interesting. Some students might have missed it. Look at this one. Being a member of the WTO, the correct answer should be C option. For India, food security collides with trade. As you know, first part author tells you that India is a member of WTO. In WTO, I mean, there is an Article 6. The Article 6, according to this agreement, there is an upper limit that the subsidy in India or any member of WTO arising from a minimal supports cannot exceed 10%. It cannot exceed 10% of the value of agricultural production for developing countries. But then author, here's a major transition, author talks about PDS in India. And he says that in the PDS in India, it is possible that, last sentence, that in some years, the subsidy to producers will exceed 10% of the value of agricultural production. So in some years, it is possible that in India, the subsidy to produce will exceed 10%. However, according to this article of 6, it is not allowed to be more than to exceed 10%. So author, after telling you, crucial message has been asked. What author has said, that will be his message. India should revise its PDS. Nowhere author has said so. So please don't make your own inferences. India should revise its PDS. Why not WTO should revise its Article 6? Author has said, in fact, neither. Nor he is asking India to revise its PDS. He has only given you 2 pieces of information and there is a possibility in the future. B says India should not be a member of WTO. It has gone even miles away ahead of this passage. So it is not correct. Author has not supported this. The message may be clear that it should be the message of the author. There should not be any adulteration or addition done by the examiner. Last option, India provided food security to its poor. Dear, it cannot be the main message. It is just a peripheral fact, contextual fact that in PDS in India. But what author wants to convey is how this is going to exceed 10% and how it is against that Article 6 and its upper cap that it cannot exceed. So we are left with the C. For India, food security collides with trade. Trade, WTO, World Trade Organization. So of course, the food security, that is PDS, is going to collide. So it was a very good question. The students who have cracked it, I mean, they have really done good job. तो ये इसमें कई बार स्टूडेंट जो हैं they jump the guns and they go for option A. You are not supposed to be choose an option on thinking basis, feeling based. So don't jump the guns and always evaluate the given data properly, what the author has said, what he has not said. Like in cricket we have this now, if the bowler if he steps out of this crease, then the ball becomes no. So similarly, the author, whatever he has said in the passage, that is this line, Lakshman Rekha, and options that are exceeding it cannot be called as crucial, cannot be called as message, because the message of the author should be there, not any addition, not any exaggeration, not any undermining from the original stuff, right? So assumption and inference questions are now going on. Passage number 15. Again, this passage asks you crucial message. I told you that crucial message is very favorite questions of UPSC. They keep asking this question. So in this question, author talks about monoculture, carries great risk, and what is the risk? Author explains the risk. So this part, second part, is the explanation of the first sentence, right? Then he mentions the risks are magnified. It has been magnified. Everybody knows if something has been made bigger, right, more intense. The risks are magnified by the changing climate. The monoculture earlier he mentions, and now the risk. As the planet warms, he explains this. Monsoon rains intensify, farmlands in Asia will flood. Now he's trying to convey this. What this part is, the second part is actually the elaboration, the example part, to convey the point that risk, this monoculture risk, the risk associated with that has been magnified by the changing climate. How it has magnified? He gives the example from Asia, from North America to establish his point. Please understand that elaboration, examples, explanation or justification for the arguments, they are the secondary point. They are done to establish a point, to prove a point. However, the point itself, the idea itself is the principal thing. So in this case, any student who has gone for option D has done a basic error, that he has gone for the example or explanation part. He has been asked to find out the message. So an example cannot be the message. Example is just for the readers to connect with that point. So Asia and North America will be worse for us is absolutely incorrect. The correct option should be option A. Preserving crop genetic diversity is an insurance against the effects of climate change. Preserving, because monoculture is dangerous. How it is dangerous, author has described. Climate change has actually magnified this problem. So preserving crop genetic diversity, it means it is taking care of the monoculture, is an insurance. Insurance is not an extreme term. It means insurance is something that you can bank upon, right? If you need, you can bank upon. For example, life insurance itself does not mean that nobody will die, but it means that in case of death, there is something to bank upon. So it's an insurance against the effects of climate change. That's why author says that monoculture problem has been magnified by climate change. So all students were supposed to get this one correct. All those who were stuck up by D, they were in fact deceived and hoodwinked by the examiner with a simple tool. Now, C option has not been given in the passage at all, so how can we say that it can make a... B says, despite great risk, monoculture is the only way to ensure. It is going against the passage. B is against the passage, C is not given in the passage, and D is only talking about the example part. So it cannot be correct. Yes, we are done. So all the conclusions questions we have done. You should cross check whether you have got all these questions correct or not. Now, let me take you to the second type of question. Second type of question, I will take you to the assumptions. So, multi-statement hai, the moment you see the multi-statement, you get to know that it must be connected to different part of the passage. In terms of idea, in terms of data, it should be there, right? D part, third one is incorrect because it talks about the digital economy is not compatible. Paragraph does not talk about the digital economy. So we don't have any data that it's not compatible with the idea of not valid. Passage talks about that in India, the current focus on the right to privacy is based on some new realities of the digital age, Then author talks about, so right to privacy and other rights are being discussed in this digital age by the author. Now, second one, there is no doubt. This one says, the third is clearly wrong. Third is clearly wrong. So wherever you have three, that cannot be answered. B and C cannot be the answer. First one say, second I will take first. First ले लीजिए. State should have some institution to ensure its appropriate role in a digital society. किसी को अच्छा, if I go this way, in fact, first somebody has chosen as D option. Spandan, your answer for first one is D. So you need clarification for this. State should have some institution to ensure its appropriate role in digital society. Yes, author is saying that the role of the state therefore is not just to abstain from preventing rightful free expression, but also to actively ensure that private parties are not able to block it. The passage says that the state's role is that not only the government's role is not just to give this right to the people, but also to ensure that nobody is able to block it. So the second, state should ensure that private parties do not violate. This is directly given in the last sentence. So second is valid. First is valid because it says state should have some institution. Now some students might have been confused that state should have some institution to ensure its appropriate role in digital society. We can say yes, because who can deny this? Because digital age, as given in the first line, that the new realities are there, some new realities in digital age. So it means this thing is an evolving process and being considered, different aspects are being considered because of this new challenge, the current focus and the new realities of the digital age. So we can go for option statement first also, that a state should have some institution to ensure its appropriate role in a digital society. Right? So option A is the correct answer. Passage 2 already done. Passage 3 देख लीजिए. देखिए passage 3 is a passage that I will say is quite path you have chosen B. Yes, correct answer. However, this passage is difficult passage, and my frank opinion and honest opinion is that a student who is appearing and suppose he comes across this same passage, he should not get entangled in it. He should skip this passage, because first of all there are 5 statements. The option combinations are also not helping, right? So this passage is going to take you more time. Be careful, and the day one I have discussed the strategy in detail, that you should give 2 minute maximum, or maybe 2+ minute, 2.25, 2.5 maybe, to single para and 1 question passage. Suppose a passage is there that is going to be solved in not less than 5 minutes, then unnecessarily you are wasting your time. And even after 5 minutes, this is a passage, even after 5 minutes there will be doubt. So you have to be careful of this one. The passage 3, private investment in general is volatile, foreign private investment is more volatile. So it means the first private investment, it is talking about the domestic private investment, because the foreign private investment is mentioned here, and that is more volatile. So and then in the last, the author talks about here all the negative aspects of foreign FDI. It does not produce give you employment, it creates inequalities, all the negative aspect. At the end, author mentions a probable positive outcome. That 2 word probable is there. Consequence of foreign investment is the inflow of the new technology and its subsequent diffusion. However, the technology diffusion is not at all certain, because the existing state of physical and human capital in India may prove inadequate for the diffusion. It means the existing human capital, physical capital is not up to the mark. So this technology, this only benefit that he was mentioning has also been dispelled. So dear, from this statement, you see the UPSC examiner had connected with the 5th statement. He says substantial public investment in education and health should be undertaken. Yes, and education and health means related to human capital. So when the human capital in India is not up to the mark, so of course there is an investment. Why public investment is mentioned? We have no argument against this, because the private investment, domestic private investment is in general volatile, FDI is more volatile, so public investment, we are left with nothing wrong has been told about that. So there is no problem. So 5th, wherever is given, should be chosen. It is given in C and B. When you look at first one, it says relying on foreign investment in the long run is not an economically sound policy. Yes, correct, because author has said neither it solves the problem of employment, then it creates many other problems. It does not solve the problem on employment, it creates inequalities. FDI inflows are volatile over time and across sectors and regions, which is a necessary consequence of the research. The adverse consequences are unstable employment and an accentuation of income and regional inequalities. So in the long run, if you depend on this, not a sound policy. First is valid, hence B is the right option. ठीक है विश्वजीत. So first one is a justification. Whereas the third one, fifth one is you have already picked up. Moving to this fourth is already done message. Fifth passage. Anyone doubtful? Anyone doubtful of fifth passage? I need to make an announcement. In fact, today, due to some reasons, unforeseen situations, I will continue your pre-lunch class up to 12:30, not up to 1 p.m. So half an hour before the usual time I will end it. However, post-lunch will compensate for that half an hour. So post-lunch, instead of 4 p.m., it will be stretched to 4:30 p.m. Right? Now, passage number 5. Anyone doubtful? No. So I move to passage number 6. In case any student who has not asked or maybe thinking over it, let me just tell you quickly that this passage talks about that culture and knowledge both are important, right? Culture, he tells the benefit, and then knowledge he mentions. So what we should aim is at producing men who possess both culture and expert knowledge. And then the author tells you the benefit. He says together it will impart meaning and human existence. So it is C plus K, both are required, author has said. And then individually has told that what is the benefit of C, what is the benefit of K. So option second statement, without acquiring culture, a person's education is not complete, correct, because he has emphasized on both. So he has said together it will impart meaning. So second is valid. First one is vague. It says a society without well-educated people cannot be transformed into a modern society. Now what is a modern society? Author is talking about the cultural thing, the human factor, moral issues also that includes. Whereas the modern society is a very vague term, whether it is talking about the gadgets and gizmo and based cutting edge technology it is using, or the human factor. So modern society, that's why, is weak. Society without well-educated people cannot transform into modern society. So B is the right option. Passage 6 I have already discussed. Someone was... no, it's not been discussed, but it is easier passage. Passage 6 is not challenging. Parth, it is clear? You chose D. Don't mind your answers here because I have selected all the tricky questions of assumption and inference in this sheet. Now, this one should have been correct. Author has done an advocacy for economic freedom, and economic freedom by economic freedom he has said that he means that so side by side, Sahib, I am giving you the answers plus the discussion. So, up to assumption questions I have picked up and I am writing the answer and and then explaining at the same time. So, आपका passage number 6 में देखिए, the author has said about the economic freedom. He has done the advocacy for that, and he says that economic freedom means that when people are not forced, those people who have done higher education, who have been educated and they have invested in education, like spend money on their education or their parents have done so. If they are charged if they are forced to pay high income tax on their income that they are getting by the dint of their hard work and their investment in education, then it will be a kind of it will be damaging and discouraging them. So author does the advocacy that the government should not pay force them to pay high taxes. So statement third is valid. Economic freedom has a positive impact on building up human capital. Economic freedom, yes, that is according to author's thought. So it matches. Whereas the second one says investment in the education of children ensure their economic freedom. How does it ensure? It is illogical. Investment in the education of children ensures their economic freedom. Author in the last sentence says the same incentives apply which is said about the educated people on whose income a higher income tax should not be charged. So the same incentives apply to parents who decide on whether to invest in their children's education or not. So if the investment in the education itself ensures economic freedom, then why the author is writing this paragraph? Why does he go for an advocacy here? So second is wrong. First says lower tax rates in a country invariably translate into greater investment in higher education. This extreme word makes this statement incorrect. अगर मैं इसको delete कर दूं invariably को, this statement is absolutely correct according to the author's thought and according to the data. I'm not reading invariably. Just imagine that it is not here. It says lower tax rates in a country translate into greater investment in higher education. That's what author has said. That if they are not forced to pay high taxes, it will be helpful. But invariably it happens without a change. Always, that is incorrect. So the correct answer is only C option. So passage number 6, answer is C. Though I am discussing and giving you the answer, yet the explanation and answer sheet will be shared with you. So don't worry about that. Passage number 7, again an assumption question, and it is again of that nature that you should not, it is going to take time, and author has, done his work very, very shrewdly, and तो आपको इसका भी ध्यान रखना चाहिए. चलिए, इसमें भी टाइम बहुत ज़्यादा है क्योंकि 4 statements are there. You see here, there is no doubt about the statement number 1, that this statement is incorrect. Structural and rural transformation is impossible when forms are mainly small and marginal. Author has not said so. So first is wrong, A cannot be the answer. Second says a good price incentive can trigger investment in agriculture. Absolutely correct, and I think nobody will have any issue. A good price incentive can trigger investment in agriculture given in the passage. From this example, what did India do during this period? He says research revealed that relative price scenario changed significantly by more 50 in favor of agriculture in the wake of rising global prices. This boosted private investment. So for second, you have the data present, and hence you can assume it. Third one, India needs to build value chains for higher value agri products. Third and fourth are because 2 has been paired with 4 and 3 both. So you have to solve either of them. Look at fourth one, higher global prices of agricultural commodities. Higher global prices of agricultural commodities are essential for India's poverty reduction. It means if there are not higher global prices, India's poverty reduction cannot take place. Essential is a very strong word. Without it, it cannot take place, which is incorrect because you don't have the data for that. So B cannot be the answer. We are left with this C option. Essential के tantamount equal to this, nothing has been said. Author has only mentioned here, I show you the relevant part. Author says research reveals that relative price scenario changes in India in favor of agriculture in the wake of rising global prices. In the wake of, meaning as a consequence of. However, it does not say that it is essential. So it does not give you this part sufficient data to accept the fourth statement. So fourth is wrong. Whereas first is a little distantly connected. It says a good price incentive can trigger investment in, third one. India needs to build value chains. India needs to build, recommendation to build value chains for high value agri products like livestock and horticulture. India needs to build value chains in these things, in rural areas, business, agri products and livestock. It is in the line of the thought, and you can say it's a manifestation of this part. Author, when he has mentioned in India, agriculture engages about half of its workforce and about 80% of its farms are small and marginal compared to China and Vietnam. Now about China and Vietnam, author says, which have experienced, China and Vietnam have experienced fast structural and rural transformation. It means structural transformation is a positive thing because it gave the positive good results in China and Vietnam. So the given option, this given option statement that third one, India needs to build value chains, because that sounds structural. that sounds as the agri product or the horticulture, I mean this business, rural transformation, उसके according लग रहा है, structural है, value chain should be built and all that. That's a manifestation of the theory of the example given in the China and Vietnam. तो डियर ये आंसर आपका होना चाहिए था इसका. Critical message of this passage we have already done. तो passage number 7, the correct answer is option 2 and 3, C option. Sahib, both are related to, as they have said agri products, it means they are talking about the rural transformation. Small holding farmers they are talking about. And in the third one, India needs to build value chains of what? High value agri products like livestock and cattle. So agri products they are talking about. They are talking about farmers, and farmers have something to do with the agri products or not. So don't just look for the exact word, but there will be, are they connected with the given theory or not? That should be your concern. Now passage number 9, again another assumption question. In this passage, there is no doubt, the passage talks about that biotechnology should be considered in the way of different aspects are mentioned here. As the author builds his argument, he says that although most of GM crops cultivated now are genetically engineered for a single trait, in future crop genetically engineered for more than one trait will be the norms. Thus, biotechnology's role in agriculture and regulation of the same cannot be understood solely in the context of the current generation of GM crops. Instead, there is a need. Now, look at the word need, to take a comprehensive look, taking into account various aspects. So, various aspects should be considered if we want to go for biotechnology, including socio-economic impacts. That should also be considered. Hence, we find that biotechnology regulation should take into account socio-economic. The third statement is absolutely correct and comes from this socio-economic aspect should be considered. First one is also correct. Biotechnology regulation is an evolving process, because the author is telling us it's an evolving process. Otherwise, why the author would be telling that we should, consider this aspect and that aspect and should not be just confined to one aspect. It means it is evolving. That's why various suggestions are given here. The one is correct, third is correct. Second is wrong because there is no data supporting this. It says participation of people is needed in policy decisions. Policy decisions, generally the public is not involved, but I am not using the GS knowledge. I am just saying that nowhere in the passage anything supporting this is given. So 1 and 3. Another option is, so it is 1 and 3. Yes, this is correct. Fourth is also wrong. It says wider involvement of executive in biotechnology regulation improves the effectiveness in dealing. How do we know? Okay, wider involvement of the executive is required. Author has only mentioned that the experts who are taking care of biotechnology, they should also, domestic regulation of biotechnology cannot be waived in isolation of trade policy and obligation or under various international treaties and conventions. It cannot be waived separate that. So it means this aspect should also be considered. However, it does not give you the detail to say that wider involvement of executive will bring in effectiveness. So, fourth is wrong. Now, the passage number 8 I have skipped because it is talking about inference. Sahib, I am taking one type of question. First I discuss conclusion, now I am doing assumption. Inference I will come back to. So, this the correct answer for this one is 1 and 3, B option. Tenth already done. 11th is inference, so we'll come back to this. 13th is talking about assumption, बाद में करेंगे. India's economic footprint. Again in this one is also an assumption question, तो मैं उसको inference के साथ करा दूंगा. 13 is inference, 14th is assumption. Again with 13 there's an inference question, तो इसके साथ ही कर लेंगे, ठीक है, paired है. 14th is assumption. Now 14th passage, yes. Passage number 14. A research team examined the long-term owl roost, right? Here, it is an easier question, and I think everybody should have chosen the third one, B option. Humans are responsible for the loss of the Earth's natural resilience, and we get it from this line. But from the last quarter of the 19th century, human-made changes to the environment had caused an enormous drop in biomass and energy flow. This dramatic decline in energy flow means modern ecosystems are not adapting as easily as they did in the past. So third is correct. Look at the first one. Global warming is a frequently occurring natural phenomenon. Frequently, you don't have the data for that. Frequently means बार-बार जो चीज हो रही है. Where do you get it from? Only once, that is 13,000 years ago it happened. This is given here. The research suggested that when the Earth went through a period of rapid warming, a period of not frequent warming but rapid warming about 13,000 years ago. But this statement is saying frequently occurring, so first is wrong. Second, the impending global warming, it means impending means approaching, will not adversely affect small mammals. Question is, how do we know? No data is given for this, no data is given for this. Data inadequate, data inadequate. So only third is correct. That is passage number 14. Now comes the 15 we have already done. Now we are going to the inference question, and along with the inference maybe another assumption question was added, that is also skipped. So आपको answer मिल गया सारे assumption, not all assumption questions but जिसमें let me take you to the inference based questions. Passage number 1, 2, 3 already done. Fourth done. Fifth is assumption discussed. Inference का question आ रहा है आपका. Passage number 8. Inference should be based on the passage. The information should always be there, right? The data case will be there, and it should not be a mere word-to-word copy. So most logical and rational. When the most word is written, you see we have to compare and choose the best inference, that is by and large based on the main point of the author of the passage. So here, cooking with biomass and coal in India is now recognized to cause major health problems, right? The correct option should be D. Access to cooking gas can reduce premature deaths in poor households. Only this option, and I think nobody would be should miss it. देखिए this question is comparatively easy than the inference question you solved yesterday, और आपने कल 38 question, around 40 questions कर लिए inference के. उसमें जो the questions that were given in your practice sheet were much more difficult than this question. So nobody should miss this one, right? In case you have chosen B, subsidizing the use of clean fuels will solve the problem. How do you know that it is not already being subsidized? Or how do you know that LPG cylinders are costly? And then if you know, assume that it's costly, and if you know, assume that it's not being subsidized, or let's say further subsidies should be there, then third logic, another point loophole in this option is, and that is my point, ki how do you know that if we subsidize a product, the people will just start using it? Because there is also a thing called habit. So if they are the people living in remote areas, if they are more habitual of using some other fuel, so switching over to LPG will not just depend on subsidy. There could be other factors as well. That's why B is not correct. So this inference question is done. चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. पैसेज नंबर आपका 10 कर लिया हमने, पहले 11 पे आते हैं, inference. And there are two questions based on, question number 12 and 13 is based on assumption. These two passages were asked in the year 2020. 2019 or 2020? I think 2020 it was. Passage 7, question number 2. I have discussed question number 2 of passage 7. The passage number 7 was talking about India and China and Vietnam in smallholding farmers. The assumption question I discussed, but before that, in the conclusion, I discussed about question number 8. The correct answer is option D, inclusive agriculture. This is the critical message. It is talking about poverty reduction. right? And in the passage it is given. So Nimai, you need to go along with the pace of the class. In case you have missed it, you have joined the class a little late, don't worry, because the explanation and the answer sheet will be shared with you. Now, passage 11. It talks about economic liberalization in India was shaped largely by the economic problems of the government than the economic priorities of the people. So, economic liberalization was faulty in India, as the passage says. Thus, there were limitations in the various issues are discussed. And then author says, and all these years later, four quite crises confront the economy: agriculture, infrastructure, industrialization, and education, as constraints on the country's future prospect. These problems must be resolved if economic growth has to be sustained and transformed into meaningful development. So we get to know that in this passage, author only talks about the economic liberalization has not helped, right? And it was wrong. It has created, it has created a kind of crisis also in four sectors. So when you go for the inference of the question number 12, there are two statements written. First one, it is essential to rethink and redefine the economic role of the state in the quest for development. Yes, because the last sentence is the base for this, supporting this inference. Last sentence you read, these problems must be resolved if economic growth has to be. There are problems and they must be resolved. So it is essential to rethink and redefine the economic role of the state in the quest for development. Because as it happened in India, author says that it was largely shaped by the economic problems of the government than by the economic priorities of the people, and hence it created problems. It created gaps and also crisis in some sectors. So he emphasizes that there should be, the first statement is valid. Second is saying that India has not made effective implementation of its policies in social sectors. Do remember, education is mentioned in the passage, and in education there is a crisis. Crisis is a big word. Education is a social sector, right? India has not made effective implementation of its policies in social sector, nor made sufficient investment in them. Absolutely correct. If these two adjectives that I have underlined, encircled, if they were not given, the statement would have been wrong. How do we know that India did not make any investment? Because there is a possibility that India, in spite of making investment, yet the result is not fruitful. That's a very much possibility. However, effective implementation was not there, sufficient investment was not there. Yes, because we have the crisis in the sector, social sector, in the education, so we can infer this, and data is given for that. So both C is the right answer. Question number 13 that I left earlier was assumption question. Same issue with that. It says India's economic needs to be greatly integrated with the global economy so as to create large number of jobs and sustain its growth. So you see, economic liberalization happened in India, but the kind of result we did not get. Economic liberalization means that it's integration with other countries also, with other economies as well. So the first one, you don't find the data for that. If we greatly integrate it, will create large number of jobs and sustain growth momentum. Second is economic liberalization would cause large economic growth which would reduce poverty and create sufficient employment. Economic liberalization would cause, but in India's case it did not, because as per the passage it is not economic liberalization as a magic wand, rather how it is being implemented. That matters. Since India, it was not implemented correctly as per the author, hence it could not deliver the results. But second is saying that it itself can change everything. So second is also incorrect. It should be D option, neither. Neither one nor two. Now next passage is passage 12. Passage 12, the first question is asking you inference. The B option should be chosen. In a competitive global economy, India must use regulations strategically. So in the inference, question number 14 is an inference based question. Question number 15, where throughout he's talking about this regulation, a regulatory system, how it should be used. And question number 15, I must tell you that here in the option A, there is a loophole that it says a better regulatory system will help India achieve the size of economy appropriate to itself. So how we assure that it will help, right? It may or may not. But as the author has said, better regulatory system is required. But what else is required along with it? Like, or the regulatory system is the only thing that will achieve the size of economy. That's why option A is not chosen, because it does not have sufficient data. Question number 15, assumption. It says regulations are not effectively used to protect local markets. It is incorrect. It says are not effectively used. In the passage, the author has used, talks about regulations, but he talks in another sense, another perspective. While talking about regulation, he says often regulations fail to consider impacts on jobs and economic growth, right? Or lesser restrictive alternative. Regulations may be used to protect local markets at the expense of more widely shared prosperity in the future. The author is giving an example that it may be possible, because the regulation is more driven or sometimes driven by political interests, rather than the economic benefits. So he says this may happen, may be used to compromise on the bigger benefits. But it does not match with the first one. Second, social and environmental concerns are generally ignored by the government across the world. Across the world, no information is given, so we can't assume anything about the rest part of the world. Only India's case is discussed. So here you find D, neither 1 nor 2 for question number 15. Passage number 13 talks about a study, and in a study, scientists compare the microbiomes of poorly nourished and well-nourished infants, and then what was the finding? The entire detail is given. So question number 16 is asking about an inference, right? The correct answer for question number 16 should be D for Delhi. Research on benign effects of gut bacteria on nutrition has policy implications. Why other options are wrong? It was again a difficult question, because the options are very attractive. Option A, if malnourished condition in children is caused by gut bacteria, it cannot be treated. It is a weak option. A is wrong. It cannot be treated. Author has not mentioned anything about the treatment. So we don't have data for this. For B and C, they seems to be giving an oversimplified version of solution. However, the sufficient data is not present in the passage. For example, the guts of malnourished babies should be inoculated with mature microbiomes. In the passage, it is given that malnourished babies have poor microbiomes in weak ones. So they should be given inoculated, means injected with mature microbiomes. So it is giving a very oversimplified version of solution. However, whether medically it is fit or not, you are solving the question of fit or feasible or not, we don't know. So you inference me that on the basis of the passage you have to infer it. The passage does not give any information whether this can be done or whether it is medically possible, feasible in the long run or not. Same goes with C option. So B and C lose out because though they are giving the solution, but it is not based on the passage, so we don't know the other detail. D is the right option. Policy implication, as the para says, that in a study it was found where the poor microbiomes or undeveloped immature microbiomes of the poor malnourished babies, and then in the study it was found that it was because of the missing element substance present in the mother's milk of these malnourished babies, and these mothers were also found malnourished. So the connection is there between the baby and the mother. Policy implication is something which is the second step of a study. It means more towards action. So that's why D is the right answer. Last question is about assumption. Of course, the second is a valid assumption. It says the babies of malnourished mothers generally tend to be malnourished. It is given in the from the passage, you can assume it. But the first is wrong, because just like the previous inferences, it says processed probiotic foods are a solution. How do we know? How can we assume that it's a solution? Medically fit, and the problem can be sorted out this way. So it is 1 is wrong, second is correct. right? Second is correct. Rest of the questions we have already done. So test 1 was, it had complex questions, difficult questions. However, this, some students must have scored because Parth and Anish and Biswajit and today I think this, maybe I'm missing a couple of names. They have been doing good, and their accuracy rate is, pretty good. In the test, you were supposed to solve all the questions because I wanted you to have more exposure. However, some questions should be skipped, can be skipped in the exam. So इसमें कुछ ऐसे क्वेश्चन थे जो आप स्किप कर सकते थे, यहाँ क्लास में अलाउ नहीं था. तो चलिए डियर, इसके आंसर एंड एक्सप्लेनेशंस विल बी शेयर्ड ऑफ दिस टेस्ट टू. Right, practice sheet I have already discussed, assumption sheets we have completed. Now I will take you to this this practice sheet, the miscellaneous questions, dear. We have done the corollary question from this sheet, right? Path policy implication is something which is the next step of a finding of a study. So some issue which is grave and serious enough that it is becomes a matter of policy implications. So since it was found that malnourished babies, and then the its roots were connected to the malnourished mothers, hence that option was correct. इसमें corollary passage, now dear practice sheet 2 में corollary questions we have already done, right? Then some of the please let me know, practice sheet 2, have we solved all the questions? I think that we have solved all the questions because the remaining questions were asking you about the conclusion, main point. तो corollary था इसमें, ये तो कर लिया था क्लास में फर्स्ट डे. Day 1, passage 2 is talking about what does the author argue for, then what does the passage imply, any more or less main idea based questions. Most crucial message, passage 4, why do people prefer open defecation and not want toilets? Or ये passage हमने कर लिए हैं, I think so. I need your confirmation. 16 out of 19, Biswajit, very good score. 13 now 19, yes, not bad, साहब. आपको मैं क्या कह सकता हूँ, आप पहले ही साहिब हो. So Subrata, yes, good, 14 is good. So folks, please confirm, anyone, have we done these questions? No, only corollary was done. I remember only corollary was done. So for the practice sheet 2, I'll give you I'm going to give you the answers, and these questions will not pose much challenge. Corollary देखिए already we have done, and the correct answer for this one. You will just write practice sheet 2 and the answers. So for passage number corollary 1, corollary question was discussed. The answer was option A. Passage number 2 is time is good. Okay, I told you that 35 to 40 minutes. थोड़ा सा practice चाहिए पार्थ for the time, 35 to 40 minutes I gave you for test 2 because the questions were multi-statement based and were time taking. So however, keep an average of 2 minutes. So in the exam hall, when you go for RC section, keep in mind that 40 minutes to 45 minutes, maximum 50 minutes. If you are good at RC and you are banking upon that, then you can invest more time. Otherwise, if in case you are weaker in RC, any student, then he should not spend more time in it. Rather, he should spend more time on the subject where he is confident. Passage 2, the correct answer is B option, rule according to the consent of the governed. Passage 3, imply and C is the right answer. So I just want you to write down the answer somewhere. Practice sheet 2, passage 4, asking you about the crucial message, and the correct answer is B option. Passage 4, B. Be tempting as clean and not polluting. Passage 5 talks about habits, and it should be C option. Passage 5, option C. Passage 6, the challenge the author of the passage throws to the public is to achieve D option, hard work, brotherhood and national unity. All three elements are present there. So passage 6, D for Delhi. Passage 7 is a statement, and the general will is best described as. It should be option C. Passage 7, option C. Passage 8, it should be option A. Political development is not a unilinear process, for it involves both growth and decay. Passage 8, option A. Passage number 9, it talks about digital times, not difficult, it should be option B for Bombay. The rest of the options have extreme words. Passage 9, option B. Passage number 10, it talks about crony capitalism. Corollary we have already done, so it should be option C. We have already discussed this question. C option, passage 10. Any student who was absent can find it in the old videos, and in the class number 1 or maybe 2, these corollary questions were discussed. In the class number 2, I think you will find it. Critical message of passage number 11. It should be option A. Then passage number 12. It implies. So implied will not be openly said, but the author intends to say the main point. So passage number 12, the correct answer should be B for Bombay. It's an easier question. I think everybody will get the same answer. B, Bombay. Passage 13, it is a logical corollary question, already done. D for Delhi is the answer. Corollary, you know that it should be based on the passage. I'll answer all such questions, Parth and the other student who has asked about the contact, and I will address those questions. Now, let me just finish with this. So passage 13, D for Delhi. Passage 14, it is about, yes. Which statements are true? Puts about natural resources. Yes, it should be C option, both 1 and 2. Passage 14, option C. Now passage 15, climate change is already making many people hungry all over the world. And it's not just food, nutrients that are becoming. Corollary question, and the correct answer should be option B, Bombay. Passage 15, B, Bombay. Passage number 16, two statements are given, and now this first statement is wrong because it says Indian financial instruments do not offer any financial instruments. That is incorrect. Second is valid, so B is the right answer. Second is correct. This passage 16 has two questions. So first question, question number 16, option B for Bombay is the right answer. And for question number 17 about the crucial message, it is D, Delhi, promote financial inclusion. Question number 17, D for Delhi. Passage 16, two questions, 16 and 17. Passage number 17 now talks about right, and it should be option D, Delhi. Your convincing explanation. So passage number 17, it should be D for Delhi. I have given you the answers of this practice sheet too, right? Though most part of it has already been done, corollary questions I have already discussed from this. Then 5 passages based on conclusion I discuss in the BRS base sheet 1, in the test 1. So that you will find here. Rest of the answers I have given you. For all such questions, Parth, as you have asked about the marathon and contact and all that, post lunch we will address those issues. क्योंकि जब आपसे part कर रहे होंगे तब at that time I will be discussing those points, right? So see you post lunch. As I told you that due to some unforeseen situation I have to shorten this this pre-lunch session 12:30, and we'll meet at 2 and then we'll continue till 4:30. So half an hour will be adjusted that time. Thank you so much.